The research methods used to make this video is the group questionnaire, which was the focus of tourism in Melbourne and also for the whole Victoria state. The research process get the data including quantitative data with specific number and qualitative data concluded from interviewing tourists at State Library during Melbourne Free Walking Tour. Then the data would be organized and analyzed by the group member and conduct a chart comparison between the primary data and the secondary data retrieved in Tourism Research Australia website. The methodology is to compare and find out the similarity as well as difference between those data and give recommendation. Currently, there are about 9 million tourists travelling to Australia, which is 8% more than the previous year. That brings to Australia economy $42.3 billion and increase the total international aviation capacity up to 26.2 million. The potential tourists of Australia include 3 states: New South Wales with 4.3 million tourists, Victoria with nearly 3 million, and Queensland at around 2.7 million. In specific, Victoria State is the second largest tourism market in Australia at the end of 2017. Generally, Melbourne City has 2.8 million tourists visiting at the end of 2017. In addition, there are the other attractive destinations such as Geelong with 56,000 visitors, Great Ocean Road 220,000, Peninsula with 60,000 people, and etc. All tourists visit Melbourne for holiday purpose. According to our survey and the Tourism Research Australia data, the differences between those data are quite similar. The Victoria tourism is 1.4 million and in our survey is 9 out of 20. Visit friend and relative in Victoria is about 856,000 people comparing to 6 out of 20 in the primary data. Visit purpose is 290 in source data and 3 out of 20 in the survey. Education is 2 out of 20 in the primary data and 74,000 tourists belong to that purpose rank at number 4. Moreover, according to the interview with Tourism from England in the holiday purpose group, he said he would come back to Melbourne by the working visa for a year. A large number of tourists coming to Victoria in ending March 2018. Through the survey taken by our group with 20 tourists from Free Walking Tour, there were people from Germany, Philippines, England, Malaysia, Japan and India. In particular, tourists from China was the main group with 7 out of 20 people. Over a quarter of tourists were from India and there were 4 tourists from Germany in this group. There, a small minority were from England, Malaysia, Japan with a significant number of 1. Comparing this result with statistics from International Survey in 2017, the similarity in number of Chinese people will be identified as the main minority with a number of more than 1.2 billion people. Otherwise, there were also differences in tourists from England between those primary data and secondary data. It is clear to see that in reality, tourists from England is also one of the main tourist groups in Victoria comparing to the number of 1 out of 20 tourists that we collected. It showed that Melbourne seemed not to be the main destination of England tourists. Therefore, government should have some strategy to attract more tourists from other countries besides China. The chart illustrates that even though tourists in India is just a very small number in total, it is still a significant proportion in a group of 20 people. It means Melbourne attracts Indian tourists in education system and environment than other states in Australia. Overall, there are similarities between secondary data from Tourism Research Australia and what our group took from the survey, which is primary data. Those similarities are all about Chinese tourists. Melbourne is named as the world's most livable city by The Economist with high score of education system, infrastructure and environment. Moreover, through the survey at Free Walking Tour, the satisfaction of tourists about Melbourne is high in all aspects: security, safety, culture, environment, weather and infrastructure. In particular, tourists mark infrastructure and culture as strong platform of Melbourne in attracting people with the average score of 80%. As been mentioned before, Melbourne is known as the most livable city in the world because one of the elements is infrastructure. Therefore, the result of the survey show that the evidence that Melbourne keep developing that strength and improving it day by day. Besides that, tourists also love the environment in Melbourne with average score was 78% in terms of weather and local people in Melbourne. Security safety is also one of the strengths of Melbourne. However, some tourists share that there are still some crime on street and suburb as well as homeless people. Government should conduct some recommendation and work on it to make Melbourne to improve its comprehensive development. A survey has been conducted by interviewing 20 tourists of what attraction they like most in Melbourne. 12 out of 20 people comment they are attracted to Great Ocean Road. 11 people voted for Brighton Beach, 9 people like to visit St Kilda Beach, and only 6 people for Peninsula Hot Spring. By comparing the primary data that was obtained from the survey with the government tourism data from the end of 2017, the analysis showed that the main attraction of tourist visit in Victoria is somewhat similar. At the end of 2017, broader tourism showed that there is 28 million tourists visit Melbourne, 224,000 tourists travel to Great Ocean Road, 60,000 people has visited Peninsula, where only 56,000 people visit Geelong. These data show that visitors who travel to Victoria are mainly to Melbourne. The easy accessibility of public transport and infrastructure let the international and domestic visitor easily wander around Melbourne area. The iconic laneway, tantalizing food and wine, dynamic art scene are some of the best to offer by Melbourne. Asking for what is the best regional Victoria could offer. The Great Ocean Road is the first choice of most of the traveller. The famous 12 Apolis landmark has become one of the most visited locations for visitors who travel to Melbourne. Easily accessible by public transport or with just an hour drive from Melbourne, Mornington Peninsula has become the second most attractive location for visitors. Geelong is the least attractive location in this survey. This could be because there's not many attracting points in this region except for a sculptured polar line along the foreshore. There's not so much information and marketing of the attraction of Geelong to the international visitor. When asking if they would like to visit Melbourne again, 100% agree that had been reached. Each response say that they would definitely visit Melbourne again.